All right, we're actually live. So, hey guys,
Hey,
Hurricane
everybody.
here. I'm here with Jared. Jared, say hi to everyone.
Yeah, how's it going, everyone? Good to see you again. And
Cool.
for
So
those
we
who
got,
are new, welcome.
yeah, we got a couple minutes, JT, and I just wanted to kind of let everybody know who exactly you are, because I got a couple emails asking that. So I sent an email out to most of the people that are on this list. Who is JT? I like to call him JT, or the man, the myth, the legend. You pick. But JT, he's a best-selling author of The Mental Game of Poker, and he was definitely one of my mentors coming up in the poker game. He was actually my favorite mentor, the best mentor that I've ever actually had. Not only did he dramatically change my poker game, but he also dramatically changed my life. And as a result of that, I hope to bring the same to you guys. And as I spoke in the email I talked about, actually, Jared, you'll love this email that I wrote.
Yeah,
I talked a little bit about the fact that I was a bit of a hothead. I don't know if you would agree or disagree with that.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with it.
Oops. Well, I was a bit of a hothead, but I sort of related it. I like to relate a lot of things to people to movies. So I sort of related it to one of my favorite movies, which all-time favorite movies. Jared might actually find this really funny, but the movie is called Top Gun. So I talked about Top
Classic.
Gun, and for those of you guys that are living under a rock, or maybe you're from another country, if you haven't seen Top Gun, you want to see Top Gun, it's the shit. But it's the story of Maverick, a hot-headed young fighter pilot who's just sort of like a gunslinger. He's kind of a badass, but he's got a lot of issues. You see, he goes on something we call tilt, which we'll learn during the progress of this webinar series. At some point, you'll kind of understand tilt a little bit better. But Maverick's a hothead. If it wasn't for his sidekick, his co-pilot, a guy by the name of Goose, which I talked to about and referred to him as Maverick's ice pack, because a lot of times Maverick in his hot-headedness needed that ice pack to cool him down.
Come on, Mav.
I talked about it in the actual email, Jared, and I called you Goose. I said, Jared, it's like Goose. So I was able to wrangle him up, get him on these webinars, and I had to pay Jared on a weekly basis. I would talk to him every single Friday. I remember it. I would look forward to every single Friday. It would be exciting for me because I almost felt like Jared was my therapist. And in fact, not only was he my therapist, but he was also sort of my strategist. He helped me strategize all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, he really helped me develop this really good, cool, calm-headedness that kind of got me through the hot-headed Maverick days. And now I'm more like a Maverick that's on a straight path. But that doesn't mean that I'm always this cool guy like Iceman, who's one of the villains in the movie. But I'm still that Maverick where I have problems. However, I have to continually work on them. And the way that I work on them is through Jared's continued teaching. So I decided that I would really wrangle him up, beg and plead with him to get him on these webinars for 30 minutes every week. And we would tackle a lot of your suggestions. If you haven't suggested, continue to do so. Either get on hurricanehour.com, join that list and email me, reply to that email that I send out to you. Let me know what you want to hear Jared talk about. Or jump on my Facebook page, friend me, and just post suggestions of what you want to hear. I have it on a Facebook page. I also have it in a Facebook group called the OMG Way. Request there. I'll accept you to join. Private message me. Tell me what you want to hear about. And Jared and I will tackle those each week one by one. So this week, Jared, I know you're going to be super excited. We got a pretty long list. So how do you feel about that?
I love it. I love it. Let's bring them to
Awesome.
me. So let's get at it.
Fantastic. So to get started here, because we only got 28 minutes, so I better talk fast. I was talking too slow. We're going to start to talk really fast. But I had a problem that I've been thinking about a lot. It's been churning in my head, and I kind of thought about it, and I worked it through using a tool that Jared calls a mental hand history. So I wanted him to briefly explain that to you guys. Again, this is available in his book. It's called The Mental Game of Poker. If you haven't read it, I highly encourage you to do it. It's like $20, maybe $25, something like that. He'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a minute. But it will be that best $25 you've ever spent in your whole life if you just read through it and try to relate what he talks about there to business. I guarantee you it's one of the best reads that you'll ever have. It's very entertaining. It's got a little bit about my story and my problems, so you can laugh at me, you can chuckle at me and say, Liz, you're a dork. I don't care. Do it. But get it. So let's talk about this mental hand history, Jared. Please tell people what it is and how they would use it.
Yeah, so the mental hand history is basically a 5-step process for actually getting at the root of a problem. So if you have anger issues, you've got fear, you've got anxiety, motivational issues, whatever your mental game issue is, it's really a symptom of a deeper issue. And the deeper issue could be high expectations, failures in understanding the learning process, overconfidence, a lack of confidence, an illusion of control. There are lots of different underlying issues that are at the root of many of these problems. But in order for you to actually solve a problem long term, you have to get at the root of it. And this runs counter to what a lot of people think about when they're trying to problem solve with an issue that they're having. They say, oh, okay, well, I'm not motivated enough. Well, get motivated or inspire yourself. Watch some videos on YouTube and you'll feel better. If you're feeling anxious or fearful, well then, be fearless, just kind of fight through it. And that's all well and good, but very often problems are more complex than that. And those kind of strategies are they're very temporary. They're kind of like Band-Aids, or like pulling a weed out, but not actually getting the root of it. It's going to grow back. The problem is going to reemerge. So what the mental hand history does is try to drill down into the root of the issue and pulls it out by the roots, provides you a correction so that you can actually not just make progress short term, what these kind of tricks will do as well, gives you progress short term. And what it does is create sustainable progress long term so that when you're in similar situations, you are not having the same kind of reaction. You're not getting angry. You're not getting anxious. You're not losing confidence in those spots. You're actually continuing to grow and build your game. In essence, it allows you to continue to evolve.
Right. Awesome. And to just kind of tell everybody a little bit more about the mental hand history.
Right. So basically the steps are as follows. And as I said, it's a 5-step process. The first step is, all of these steps are important, but if you don't get past the first step, you got no chance of really doing a good job with the rest of it. The first step is to describe the problem in as much detail as you can. The thoughts that arise, the emotional reactions that you have, maybe the types of sort of tactical or business related decisions that you make that you think are errors, some of the physical signs. Basically what we're trying to do is get a very, very detailed description of what the problem is. This is a step that a lot of people, kind of skirt over. Like I said, it's easy to just say, well, okay, I'm not motivated. Well, be more descriptive. In what situations are you not motivated? How long has this been a problem? Why in these situations is it happening? Really try to get into detail about some of the thoughts that are popping up, the emotional reactions that are there, really as much of a description as you can, because then in step 2, what we're at is trying to identify why it makes logical sense that you would think, feel, react, make decisions that way. This is a very interesting step for a lot of people. They believe that their emotional reactions, they believe that their problems are irrational or illogical. And this question goes the exact opposite. The reason that this is an important step also is because it sort of fits a philosophy that I have, which is that all mental and emotional problems are part of a predictable pattern, right? That there's no randomness in our actions, right? Unless you have, gotten kicked in the head, have permanent brain damage, or are truly insane, which none of you can be, right? You're not locked up in a mental institution. Then all of our actions are predictable. The problem is we often lack an understanding about why they're predictable. So that gets to this step 2. Why does it make logical sense that you would think, feel, or react this way? And it may be challenging for you to come up with some answers to that. Right? The mental hand history doesn't have to be something that you fill out, in one go and in a half hour. Eventually you'll get good at it. You'll get more skilled at thinking about problem solving in this way. But if it takes you a week, it takes you 2 weeks, it takes you a month to answer step 2, I don't care. The reality is I just want you to get to that step. Now, step 3 is, why is that logic flawed? Of course there's a flaw in here, right? You're having a negative reaction. And so there's got to be a flaw. Now, sometimes the flaw can just be a lack of knowledge. The younger you are, the more inexperienced you are in business, or the younger you are just in life in general. I'd say if you're under 30 years old, then you have more of a reason to say, okay, pure ignorance, I didn't really know. But for a lot of us, the answer comes down to there's something flawed in our perspective, right? The high expectations kind of thing that is at the root of what's going on here. Once you figure out that, we go to step 4, which is, what is the correction to that faulty logic, or the correction to that that void in your knowledge. Step 5 is, why is that correction correct? That step is a little bit of a bonus. It just gets to a little bit more of the underlying theory. Now, the linkage to the book with these 5 steps is that the book is written entirely to give you the information you need to help you to fill out these 5 steps, right? And that was a little bit lost in my explanation of the book. I know I said that, but I was not emphatic. So if you're going to pick up the book, which Liz and I both recommend you do, look at using the mental hand history as the center of all of your problem solving for whatever issues you have. Now, the way that the book was written is really as a kind of a choose your own adventure. You don't have to read it cover to cover. What I'd suggest is you read maybe chapters 2, 3, and 4, which are kind of the foundational chapters. And then you decide whether or not you've got one of the other issues that I lay out, whether it be anger, fear, motivational issues, or confidence issues. And you just jump right into those sections and begin using the mental hand history as your guide for breaking down whatever problems you have.
Right. Great explanation, Jared. And it's step-by-step covered in the book, but if you want to just do it the way that Jared just laid it out for you there. So if you really want to, you can rewatch this webinar and just start doing that. So I thought it would be really interesting to take this webinar in an interesting direction. So this week I had a couple sort of similar like mental game problems, and I wanted to sort of discuss them here live with Jared and tell him sort of play by play. Is
that what we're doing here?
I'm getting a free session.
Got tired of paying for us now. Now you're like, hey, let's do this webinar series. I'll get free instruction. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would make we had a lot of people actually ask for this, Jared, which was a procrastination. They asked for a procrastination webinar. So let me just run you guys first through. I thought about this all week. I ran it with the mental hand history. I wrote down a couple things. I probably didn't do the mental hand history as well as I should have, but I did it well enough to sort of discover what kind of some of the roots of my problems were and how to fix them.
So doing your procrastination mental hand history?
Yes, I did a procrastination. I procrastinated on it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you're going to love this, Jared. You're going to love my actual problem. So let me lay this out here for you. Okay. And I know usually when Jared and I get into this, it starts with me laying out the problem and then Jared running me through a series of questions. So this is what you're going to have to do on your own. If you're actually trying to get down to the root of your problem, you have to do it on your own and sort of play the devil's advocate or play both sides on this, or get the mental hand history, write down all that you think and really get good at that. So here's my problem. I'm going to lay it out.
Okay.
My problem is I feel that there are a lot of things that I procrastinate on, and I don't always prioritize things that are more important. So it's just certain things. It caused me to be a little bit less productive. So what other information do I need to give to you?
What are the situations where that happens typically? Or what are the things that you tend to delay?
Okay, so the things that I'm tending to delay are actually things that require, those of you guys that are on here, most of you know that I sell on Amazon. So I'm selling physical products on Amazon. And the things that I'm delaying are things like sending my sourcing, the head of my sourcing department in China. I delay sending her links to products that I actually want to put into production because that's what I'll say right there, and then I'll continue going.
Yep. Okay. Is that the only one, or are there others like it?
It's mainly all dealing with. That's one of the things. A lot of the other things are just really little tasks that don't really require a lot of thought. I just put them at the tail end because although they don't require a lot of thought, they're sort of like tasks that anybody could really do. I just don't do them because they take a pretty good deal of time, but they're tasks that anyone can do.
Why haven't you at this point offloaded them to your assistant?
Okay, I figured that part out. So I took care of that part already. So you already got the first problem that I already took care of.
So sometimes we don't need to go through the mental hand history for very simple solutions.
Yes, that was step one. So now headed back to the other problem, which is the sending of the links, to my sourcing agent.
Right. Okay. So that we're down to one single thing that you're not prioritizing.
Right.
Okay. And has that been across the board, or has there been any time in your career that you have had sort of the prioritization that you prefer, or has this always been an issue?
I think this has actually always been an issue. I always delayed it. At first, I actually thought that I recognized that I would actually do that. So I decided to get somebody that was actually in charge of it so that they could push me to actually do it. So I got somebody, they're in their particular position now. They tell me, hey, okay, we got this product, this is what we need on that product. So it's somewhat forced me to do things a little bit quicker. And now I've even gone a step further, and I got that assistant to take care of all that other stuff. And now I've even got him sort of pushing me to get this information over to her. But still, I haven't gotten any better at it. I'm still hetating.
Right. So at this point, you can see that getting that person to push you is really just hiding whatever issue is really at play here.
Right.
Okay. What are some of the thoughts that you have around it, and do those thoughts change depending on kind of the timing of the urgency of when you kind of really ought to send it?
I think they definitely change with the urgency. So let me talk about some of the thoughts. And I thought this was a really good exercise to go through, not only because of the fact that a lot of people look at me and they're like, oh, Liz is like Maverick. She's a gunslinger. She does everything right away. But that's not necessarily developing my mental aspect, especially like in business. I know in poker it's something entirely different, but I still have problems that I deal with on a regular basis, just like everyone else does. So for me, the actual thing that keeps me back, and I know this is going to give it away to you, Jared. I kind of already worked this out because I've worked with you so much. I figured out what my problem was.
Okay.
But this is going to give it away. Just speaking out about this, the main thing for me is that I feel that when I look at particular products, I'm sort of hesitant, or not necessarily hesitant, but I'm afraid I'm going to make the wrong decision on the actual product itself and not pick the right product, since obviously everybody's limited to a certain amount of money to produce just so many different products. So I think for me, it's being afraid to make the right decision on the right product and properly innovating that product. So I'm afraid I might make the wrong innovation, or I'm afraid I just might release the wrong product and pick the wrong product.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Like you said, is there a change in the thought process, like as you get closer to some sort of deadline that you kind of can't?
As it becomes a little bit more urgent, I sort of allow the people that are around me, like the people that work for me, I say, you know what, you go to make the decision and I'm just going to go with it. And pretty much I go with it, and it doesn't really bother me one way or the other. And I find that it obviously, when it becomes more urgent, like this week, I've been thinking about this and mulling it over. I actually already have a product in production, and they need the die lines for the actual box. And I've been mulling it over and just have it in my head about what's the right thing to do. And it literally took my Chinese agent, not even the manager of my sourcing in China, took my agent to text me and say, hey, the factory needs the die lines this week, so you have to get them to me this week. So I've been working on getting, because I'm in charge of the design for my own product, so I've been working on getting those pretty much all day today. I know that I have to get it to her by tomorrow morning.
Got it. Oh, so you've literally waited to the last day.
I did. I literally waited to the last couple days.
Yep. Okay.
But it's emergent.
Because we're dealing with a decision, how would you describe your decision-making process from the day that you kind of knew that you needed to make this decision until now? I was just delaying it. There really was like no decision. I was like, you weren't really thinking about it. You were just kind of kicking the bucket.
I kind of almost like put it off until the absolute last minute. And I thought by adding these additional people that sort of are very productive and very skilled in their particular lines of work, I thought it would put me into becoming more productive, but it really actually hasn't. It's helped, but.
Okay. So I think this is good. Step 2, why do you think it makes logical sense that you would have this kind of a reaction? So there's the delaying, but there's also the fear that's kind of underlying the delaying. So it's not really a pure procrastination issue. It's actually more of a risk aversion, fear-based procrastination. And this is why it's an important thing to tease out, because now all of a sudden the problem has moved from, just learn how to take responsibility to solve the fear that is causing the hesitation. So why do you think that it's there?
I actually, once I analyzed the entire thing, I realized that it is actually a bit of fear. And I think the underlying issue is actually, I'm afraid to come out with the wrong product with maybe not the best innovation possible.
Okay. And so since what was nice, see, this is why it's good to get as much information in the problem section as possible, because I still want to ask that why question. Why does it make sense that you'd have that kind of fear? Because yes, that is technically like the correct, thing that you could put into step 2, but it's really not flawed to have fear, right? So we want to keep like the emotional reactions in that step 1. So if, those who are watching this, if you go through this process and you have a similar answer as Liz here, put that as the new number 1, right? Make the new number 1, I am averse, or I'm fearful of making the wrong decision or coming up with a product that tanks or whatever, right? Make that the new number 1, and then get to step 2, because that's where you're going to get better answers. So why do you think you got that fear?
I really don't know the right answer. Jared, as you know, I was not a very good student in school. So the answer to that question would be, it would suck to have a dud product and have to like sell it off. So that's about the only thing that I can think of.
Okay.
There's only a limited amount of money, a limited budget that I have to work with. So there's actually the opportunity for so many different products that I don't want to make the wrong decision. I guess that might be what you're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to make the wrong decision. Yeah.
Which is kind of stupid now that I think about it, because how many wrong decisions did I make at poker?
And how many wrong decisions have you already made in business?
Oh my God, Jared, almost every decision has been the wrong decision.
Yeah, and look where you are. I mean, that's the thing. That's the funny thing. And so what, I mean, what's the flaw here? The flaw is you are avoiding putting yourself in a position where you can learn, right? The flaw is that you're trying to be perfect. But what does perfect really mean? Because perfect is something that will continue to evolve, not only in terms of business practices, but certainly in terms of what a perfect product means. I mean, if you came out with a product that was perfect for 2011, like, oh, I made this awesome new case for the iPhone 3, you're going to sell 0, right? So like perfect is obviously, reflective of the market, a constant evolution. So, by basically not taking that risk, you're guaranteeing that you're not going to learn things, which is going to help you to innovate and help you to evolve. So to me, I think that's part of the flaw, and also part of the correction is, really allowing yourself to make those mistakes, knowing that they're a cost of business. And without it, you can't continue to innovate. The other part of this, which I think goes back to my question earlier about asking you, okay, what has your decision-making process been like from the time that this has really been an issue, which this has been a problem for a long time. So basically, you have been kicking the can down the street and getting worse and worse at making these kinds of decisions. There has to be decisions that you're amazing at now that 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, really were clunky. It took you a lot of effort to figure out the answer to. So maybe part of what's going on here in terms of the underlying issue, the step 3, what's the flaw? Maybe it's just a false expectation that all of your business related decisions ought to be as easy to make as the other ones that you've learned how to make. And this is the one that just kind of lagged behind. What do you think about that?
That actually makes a lot of sense, because one thing that I did forget to mention, now this comes out, but in the past, it's been a lot easier to make a decision on a product. But now that there's a lot of other people that are doing the same thing that I do, I like to take my time and sort of innovate every product that I create, make one tiny small innovation that's going to make all the difference in the world. And I think that's where I've gotten caught up, where I should rely on the fact that I'm pretty darn good at what I do. So maybe phase 1 is still just bring out whatever product I was going to bring out, regardless of innovation or not. And then phase 2, work with the factory to produce a better product after I prove that I can still make the product work initially. So I think I've gotten caught up on this whole thing of innovation and innovating and creating these like dynamic new products, where at the end of the day, what I used to do in the past was just bring out, in some cases, it would just be stuff that wasn't even that great. I would still just be good at selling it.
Like we were talking about last week with us starting this webinar series. Who cares? We just throw it up there and start talking, and people like it. They don't, whatever. We figure it out and make it better.
Right. Absolutely. So I think that's my underlying issue. So it's kind of quite complicated, but I don't know, maybe you could just summarize it for everyone and make it
Well,
more.
it sounds like, you know, either because of you or just because the market has changed, you have a lot more competition. And as a result of that, the edges become finer, your decisions become finer, and that has put a little bit of pressure on you to feel like you need to be coming out with sort of the perfect answer, the perfect response to stay one step ahead, rather than continuing to leverage what is a core competence of yours, which is the ability to innovate, get stuff out there quickly, and in essence, almost move faster than other people, not necessarily get slogged down in the, all right, it's got to be perfect. Because if you get caught in that, it becomes a little like the tortoise and the hare, right? You don't want to be the hare that just throws out so much stuff that you end up, you know, kind of blowing all your money and you can't actually get to the finish line. And you don't want to be the tortoise either, who is so fearful and perfectionistic that they just take forever to get there. You know, to me, I think it's sort of a blending of the two, where you're running fast, but you're doing so prudently, but you're not getting caught up, and you're able to adapt and be nimble. And that's a powerful combination.
Right. So I don't want to actually be the tortoise, and I don't actually want to be the hare. I sort of want to be the hyena who races a little bit, stops, and then giggles at everybody. He cackles at everyone, and then he continues to race, and he stops and he cackles some more, and then he continues to race and cackle, rinse, repeat.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome. Okay, cool. But honestly, I already feel better just knowing what I was doing, and I'm kind of super excited now that you actually ran me through that. So send me the bill, and I'll make sure to thank you for that. But we've only got about 6 or 7 minutes. What I wanted to run through with you just really quickly, because I know a lot of people are looking forward to this, since obviously my problem was not actually a procrastination problem.
Yeah.
You solved it pretty well. You got rid of it pretty quick. When people do deal with procrastination and they do put off things that are like important, what exactly do you recommend in them, or how can you just break down things for them in the next 6 minutes, or what you would look for, or what kind of advice you give them?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a few things, and I'll talk in many directions and just kind of see what sticks. But basically, if you think about what people who are truly skilled at procrastination are, and I say that word skill purposefully, right? You are incredibly capable of just delaying things, which basically means that it's difficult for you to make decisions when there's not a lot of pressure at, forcing your decisions, right? As you were kind of describing a little bit too, you know, you just kind of kick the can, you just delay until there's a lack of options, or you just sort of put it off on somebody else and say, you make the decision, I don't care, which is another way of saying, I'm not deciding, right? You know, when you look at like procrastinating for a test, you know, at that point, you are in essence kind of giving up and basically saying, well, I'm going to do the best that I can now and see what I can get done, and that'll be it. But what you're sort of relying on in that moment is the pressure to force your hand to focus, to make decisions. You know, at that point, your choices are limited. So that's a major reason why procrastination exists. It exists because people lack the ability to make decisions. So you can't just solve procrastination and say, oh, okay, well, now suddenly I'm going to start making decisions at a more effective rate. Well, where's the skill coming from? If you've been doing this for a very long time, the skill is absent, right? For you, Liz, that was not the case. It was about in this one particular place in your career, in your overall job, where procrastination existed. But for a lot of people, it becomes a much bigger issue. So you got to really look at understanding the ways in which your decision making sucks, and begin to start thinking about how you can make some small improvements with that. So that's number one. Number two, at a deeper level, procrastinators believe that tomorrow exists. And I mean this in a little bit of a sort of a metaphoric way, right? Because in your mind, it may not be conscious, but you believe that tomorrow exists in the exact same way that it exists today, right? That basically today is going to be tomorrow, and it'll be today tomorrow, right? This is a little bit like Spaceballs, like when is today, or when was then now, soon. Basically, tomorrow is another day. The dynamic nature of business basically dictates that something small is going to change every day. I mean, if the market is fundamentally different in a year, 6 months, then that means every single day something small is changing in ways that you may not be perceiving, which basically means that your opportunity tomorrow is different than it was today. So in essence, tomorrow is a fantasy. Tomorrow is an illusion. Tomorrow does not exist in the minds of a procrastinator in the way that it actually exists. And so you've got to sort of change the way that you even think about opportunity, right? I had an opportunity, and you know, I'm not one to regret things because I still believe that this opportunity will come around again, or I have learned the lesson that is, you know, if an opportunity presents itself and it is one that is juicy, you can't sit on it. I had an opportunity to connect with an instructor, former PGA Tour player, and I kind of sat on it for a week. You know, I was busy with other work. I was like, you know, then it became a month. I was like, wow, you know, maybe I'm not really ready. Then it became 2 months. And now, you know, 4 months later, I start hearing that, you know, he's gotten involved with another psychologist. And yeah, maybe he won't again. The opportunity may come about where I'll have the ability to contact him. And it was going to be a cold call, you know, maybe like a soft introduction, a warm introduction through a friend of mine. But the reality is that every single day that went by, the opportunity to capture that guy's attention changed. He was learning more. He was interested. And so, you know, it was sort of inevitable that he was going to find somebody. And it turned out not to be me because I missed that opportunity. The point is the market changes, and tomorrow is really just an illusion. And so you've got to really be looking more aggressively at what your opportunities are right in front of you and be making the best decisions that you can, which goes back to the active decision making. So those two kind of go hand in hand.
So what do you recommend? What's your one tip? We got about a minute to take for procrastinators to get some shit done.
Just pick one thing to do today, right? Find that list of stuff that you're delaying and pick one thing to do today. You can't do it all, right? There has to be some prioritization. So you pick the one that maybe you've been kicking down the road for the longest, or maybe you pick the one that you think is going to have the most impact on your business today. But start getting good at doing stuff today. Start getting good at pushing yourself to do the things that you're delaying. It doesn't have to be all, right? You have to look at this a little bit more objectively. You can't do it all today. You know, sometimes doing a little bit feels like a waste of time. It doesn't feel like, but part of what you're doing is you're changing that skill of procrastinating, right? You can't change procrastination tomorrow, right? That's why I was joking with you earlier. You can't procrastinate changing your procrastination. You know, you got to do something today. You can't do it all. You're not going to change it in the blink of an eye. So you got to do something today. And actually by doing something, you are fundamentally altering, you know, the sort of the basis of that procrastination.
Fantastic, Jared. And I guess at the end of the day, doing at least one thing, don't try to focus on doing three today or two today. Focus on one thing and develop the habit of at least accomplishing something in the day. I guess that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and because often what you're doing is you're relying on that pressure where you just don't have any options anymore. And you're using that pressure to get a lot done really quickly. You know, so you got a deadline. Let's say it's a month away. You're like, yeah, I could probably finish it up in a week. But why don't you start doing it now? Do a little bit now, because I promise you, and I've been through this cycle many, many times, as you have too, Liz. When you delay the decisions, there's always more stuff that you wish you could have done. You wish you could have had a little bit more time to kind of vet the opportunity. You know, but when you start doing a little bit, spend a half hour today, do another half hour, maybe a couple times a week. And then maybe you still are really aggressive with that last week of work. You know, you're not going to change the whole pattern. You know, you're not going to get it done 2 weeks early. It's just not going to happen. You're going to use that whole month. But the point is that if you start doing a little bit now, the decision is guaranteed to be better by the time you get done with it, right? But if you wait until that week, there's going to be more of those things that you're going to be regretting that you didn't do.
Amazing. Well, awesome. Time is up, Jared, so you get to get off here. I just wanted to let everybody know that this week my internet was sort of shady. So next week we'll have the ability for you guys to have your questions, your suggestions live. Guys, get out there and take some action. It's at the end of the day, it's going to get you a lot of different places. Look at me. We were able to solve my problem. I got a free session. I apologize to everyone out there. I know people are going to write me some hate emails and say, Liz, what the hell? They'll probably say worse words than that, but I had to take the opportunity. I couldn't procrastinate it any longer.
Right.
So we will have the ability to answer questions next week. We still got a lot to cover. I know a couple people asked how to measure progress, how to remain more productive, and Jared also wanted to cover motivation. So keep your suggestions coming, and I guarantee we'll hit it in a future episode. Until then, you guys have a great afternoon, great evening, and remember, Pizza the Hut, he ate himself to death by worrying about all the different things he did in his back of his limo. For those of you guys that don't know what I'm talking about there, I just referenced Jared's Spaceballs. He mentioned Spaceballs, which is actually one of my all-time favorite movies too. So Pizza the Hut.
Amazing. Spaceballs is your guide to everything in the world.
Definitely. Spaceballs, amazing. Or Borat. You can always just telling everybody, my name is Borat, high five. Borat's one of my favorite movies too. So guys, we will see you next time. Thanks a lot for joining us. I will be sure to send out that email, and send me your suggestions in the meantime. Go to hurricanehour.com, reply to that email, or just comment on this YouTube video below. I read all the comments. I comment back, post on my Facebook group, wherever. Let me know what you want to know about. We will see you next week, guys. Bye-bye.